everybody! Today's Moxie Mail is about load time. So Google recently announced that load time was in fact a mobile ranking factor, which we've kind of suspected for a really long time, at least I have, and I've been helping people improve load time to improve their mobile rankings for a long time, but now we officially know that it's part of the mobile algorithm. So what can you do to improve mobile load time, especially when Google is saying on one hand mobile load time is really important, but on the other hand we think that responsive design is great, and it's our preference, because it's really hard to make a responsive design site as fast or as small or load as quickly as something that was made specifically for a mobile device. So what are we to do for mobile SEO? So here are the preliminary thoughts. The first thing you need to do is understand that load time is different on mobile than it is on other devices, especially desktop. When you're looking at load time for a mobile phone, you're not just looking at the file size. You're looking at the number of round-trip requests to and from the server to get content. So if you have a lot of round-trip requests, those are sucking a lot of load time away from really important tasks. So the first thing you would do to improve mobile load time is to consolidate the number of round-trip requests as much as you can. That means consolidating background images into CSS sprites. That means consolidating multiple JavaScript files into one whenever possible and eliminating unnecessary JavaScript files. Same thing with CSS. Whenever you can, consolidate rather than pulling 8 different style sheets for the page. See if you can just pull 1 or 2. And those things are going to be the easiest fixes for load time. The other thing that really hurts on load time is images. Images are the biggest problem in terms of slowing down responsive design load times. So what can you do to optimize your images? There are a couple really easy things. I mentioned using CSS sprites. That's great. And use sprites as much as you can. But for things that aren't background images, it's harder to optimize. So the first thing you need to look at is getting the right file type. So that means your main file types for mobile web are WEBP, JPEG, PNG, and GIF. The best one is one that you don't hear a lot about, or you haven't until recently, and that's the WEBP or WebP. Those can be losslessly compressed. They can have full transparency, and they can have animations, so they're super useful. The next best is probably the PNG pings. Those compress pretty well losslessly, which is what Google is looking for. They can have transparency, but they can't have animation. Next is JPEGs. JPEGs are also can also be losslessly compressed, but they can't have transparency and they don't have animation. So JPEGs, you usually focus on only using JPEGs for images like photos, and avoid JPEGs otherwise, because they tend to be a bit heavier than the other options. So if you're doing a photo, that's fine, use a JPEG. If it's not photorealistic, then use one of the other ones, and that's better. And then the last one is GIFs. GIFs have been around for a long time. They compress okay. They can be losslessly compressed, which is, like I said, what Google's looking for. They can have transparency, and they can have animation. So those are good for the little tiny small animations. GIFs are usually best for line drawings, logos, things like that. So saving your image as the right file type is a good way to start to make it as small as possible, right? The next thing to do is to do the compression. So I already mentioned lossless compression. That's specifically what Google is looking for. gzip doesn't actually compress images per se, so you have to compress your images when you're saving them from your image editing software. The other thing you can do, if you're a big enough site and you have the development resources and the need, is you can set up an image server to automatically adapt the image that it's sending based on the device that's asking for it, so that it's the smallest version of the image possible. Saving from your photo editing software, you can usually save down to about 75%. You just have to take a look, but don't necessarily assume that you always have to save your images at 100% quality. That last 25% is almost totally imperceivable, especially on a mobile phone, and so you're just taking up load time there when you could be saving it down to 75%, speeding up the delivery of the images quite a bit. The other thing is to make sure that you're sending the appropriate size image, and that's part of what the image server can do. Is what you don't want to do is send the same image to a desktop as you would to a mobile phone, because the desktop is going to be bigger, right? So you would send something that is the right pixel width and height as well as the right resolution. When you're sending the same image but a different version of it to a mobile phone, you should send the right pixel size for that phone as well as the right resolution. And so that's what the image server can help you do automatically on the back end if you're a site that is big enough and needs something like that. So that's what you can do. Those are the best things. So look at the images and then make sure you're minimizing the number of round trip requests. Obviously now Google, has come clean and said they really do care about load time. So the last thing to do to check your load time is there are a couple tools out there. Akamai has a tool called the MobiTest that will do a load time evaluation and give you a waterfall of the different HAR elements, the different things that take a round trip request to load your page. And then the other thing is Google's page speed tool will show you both a mobile and a desktop page speed score that you can compare, and it'll show you where there are opportunities to improve in terms of the page speed. And of course, since that's a Google tool, you know that it's probably using some of the same things that the algorithm might use to evaluate the page, so that's a really great asset for mobile SEO. So thanks for the question. Remember, if you have questions for Moxie Mail, just send them to info@mobilemoxie.com, and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks. To submit your questions about mobile marketing, email info@mobilemoxie.com, or to try our awesome mobile marketing toolset, click the link below and enter the promo code YouTube.